Hi, I'm Theo Nicolakis with Audioholics, and I'm here to do an unboxing and basic setup of Denon's AVR-X8500HA, the company's flagship AVR. And before I get started, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe here to the Audioholics channel. And if you like these videos that we've been doing, be sure to give a thumbs up and give any comments that you have in the comments section. So why don't we just dive right into things? So Denon's AVR-X8500HA is basically their flagship AVR. And those of you who are Denon fans may note, well, hey, what about the AVR-110? And you'd be right. The AVR-110 is a special AVR that Denon has launched to mark their 110th anniversary. And it really is the pinnacle expression of everything Denon. Now that AVR, which retails for almost $6,000, $5,999 to be exact, is built on this 8500HA platform, okay? So this guy that we're going to talk about here is a 13.2 channel 8K AVR. It can power all channels with the built-in amplification. You can add external amplification for one or all channels, and you can put this guy into a special preamp mode that will disconnect the amplification section. And as you may have seen with some of the measurements that Gene has done on Audioholics, this guy has an incredible preamp section that may measure better than some of the preamps out there on the market. So this is really, when we talk about a flagship unit, this really is that. The HA will do HDMI 2.1 and HDCP 2.3. So it future-proofs you, if you will, with the latest HDMI standard and the latest copy protection. So it lists for $4,599. On the video front, this will do everything that is your standard today. So the 8500 that this was built on, the original platform that was launched by Denon in 2018 and which I reviewed in May 2019, I found to be one of the best AVRs I've ever used or ever reviewed. I had the opportunity years before that to review and use in my system Denon's 7200WA, and the 8500 is just a whole different ballgame. So what you'll get here is you'll get HDR10, Dolby Vision, HLG hybrid loud gamma support. You'll get 444 pure color subsampling and BT 2020 pass-through. Now, what you get with the HA model, this unit right here, is it adds 4K 120 hertz pass-through for motion clarity. You'll have VRR, or variable refresh rate, to reduce frame tearing. And it has auto low latency mode and precision quick frame transport to reduce lag. As an 8K AVR, it will upsample 4K content to 8K. So what about audio? Well, in a nutshell, the AVR 8500HA will support every standard that matters today. So you'll get your Dolby Atmos, you'll get your DTSX, you'll get your Oro 3D, and you'll get IMAX Enhanced. Now, what the HA adds versus the original 8500H is you now get DTSX Pro, which will give you 7.2.6 or 9.2.4 channel support for DTSX decoding or IMAX Enhanced. So that's a really great feature that you'll be able to utilize potentially all the speakers in a layout if you max out all the amp channels. The other thing that really distinguishes the HA versus the original 8500 is the inclusion of new virtual 3D audio formats from Dolby and DTS. So what you get built in here is you'll have the new Dolby Atmos height virtualization technology and DTSX's Virtual X. So what this will do is if you have, let's say, a 5.1 or 7.1 or 9.1. In other words, speakers that are just on the horizontal plane, and you don't have the ability to add any height speakers in ceiling. This will create virtual speakers and a virtual effect with the speakers that you have. Now, I've heard the virtual codecs on some different products, primarily soundbars, and they're pretty impressive for what they offer. So if you're in that scenario and that's a use case for you, it's good to know that the HA has that available to you. Of course, it's no substitute for virtual speakers and virtual discrete speakers if you can muster it. The other thing that I want to mention here is if you're watching this video and you might say, hey, I have the original 8500H that Denon launched back in 2018. Is there an upgrade path? And the good news is yes. What Denon has been doing with their flagship AVRs is they've been offering enthusiasts an upgrade path. So that was the case with the original X7200W, which could be upgraded to a 7200WA. And the same thing is true here of Denon's X8500. So if you have an 8500H, you can upgrade it to an HA by ordering a special upgrade pack from Denon. What Denon will do is they will send you some boxes where you can ship and package up your AVR. So I had the opportunity to do that. And then they'll give you a pretty succinct instruction guide, and then you'll get your AVR back and upgraded. And it will actually say that it's an HA model, and everything will be labeled as such. So for $599, if any of these newer technologies are something that appeal to you, then I would strongly recommend you look to do the upgrade. Now, the first thing you might notice is you're saying, well, wait a minute, this box says AVR-X8500H. What's going on? Well, let me explain to you that not all HA units, in fact, I haven't seen one yet, has a different box. The upgraded units that will come back from Denon do, but this doesn't. So what you want to be careful to do is on the side of the box, you will see a small label that actually tells you the model number. So what you'll see on the side here is you'll see AVR-X8500HA. So that's how you know that this is an HA unit versus an 8K, rather, HA unit versus the plain old 4K 8500H. So that's something just to be aware of. Why don't we just jump right into it? So I'm going to unbox this guy and let's see what comes in the box. In typical Denon style, you'll have all the different technologies and features listed here on the box. Of course, because this box is for an 8500H, it's missing some of those newer technologies that we talked about. Okay. As soon as you unbox, the one thing Denon is going to advise you to do is to download and install their remote control AVR app for Android or iOS devices. It's an extremely functional app, so I do recommend that you take the time to download and install the app from your respective smart devices app store. The other app that you'll want to download and install is HEOS. This is Denon's streaming platform. So we can get into that a little bit with the setup, but let's go from there. This is an extremely heavy AVR. It's going to tip the scales over 50 pounds. So if you're doing any moving, whatever you might be doing, just please take your time. What you'll notice here is a backlit remote control. The remote control is extremely well laid out, highly functional, and it will backlight at night when you move it or in a darkened theater. The second thing that you'll find here in the top compartments is your Odyssey microphone. This is what you'll use to do some of the calibration. So we'll talk about Odyssey in a sec. And then we have the power cord. Notice that this is not a 3-prong. So it's a 2-prong power cord, so make sure you don't lose that. And then you'll have here a quick start guide. Now, if you've never owned a Denon Marantz receiver, in other words, something with Odyssey, you might wonder what this is. So this is what is included for you to install in your main listening position and to do the calibration with the Odyssey microphone. I hate this thing. It is great that they include something like this, but please take some time and make an investment in a proper microphone stand. Yes, it'll send you back about $30, but get the proper microphone stand and also get a boom arm so that you can use that. The next thing that you'll see here is your AM, the FM antennas, and also the 2 antennas for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I want to highlight something else here that's in the package, which I found to be extremely useful. And I want to give a lot of kudos to Sound United. What they've done here is they've given you labels. These are stickers. So as you're setting up the AVR, you can attach the labels on one side of the cables that you're connecting and on the other side. So both speaker side and AVR side. So use them to do some setup, especially if you're a newbie. It also helps you to do some speaker tracing later on if you ever need to. And then you get some additional ones down here for your HDMI cable. So if your HDMI cables are not colored, you have several components, this is kind of a really neat thing to do. So kudos to them for this really simple labeling thing. Let's get this guy pulled out and let's take a peek. So here we are. This is simply a beautiful AVR. We have the Denon logo, and as is typical, what you'll find here are all the different technologies. Now, what I do want to highlight specifically about the 8500 is this unit is made at their prestigious engineering factory in Japan. So this isn't made in China, it's not made in Taiwan, Korea, Vietnam. This is hand-built in Japan. Of course, you'll have your IMAX Enhanced, your DTSX Pro, your Oro 3D. It's 150 watts per channel with 2 channels driven. This thing will have no problem, however, powering all 13 channels simultaneously with a modest hit in power and processing. There are 8 HDMI in and 3 out. This is a 3-zone AVR. It'll support high-res audio. It's got a phenomenal DAC in here, and it'll support Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and AirPlay 2. So if you're an Apple or an iOS ecosystem at home, you'll be able to use this as an AirPlay 2 endpoint and be able to stream content right from your smart Apple device or computer right to the AVR. Now, this is something that's really cool is this, the AVR-8500 is Roon tested. Now, what does that mean? Roon, which I'll be doing a separate video and review on for Audioholics, is one of the premier music server technologies on the market today. So it's really an audiophile darling. When I had the opportunity to go and meet with the Sound United, the Denon and Marantz, and Class A folks, one of the things that I requested to see in the Denon and Marantz products was support for Roon. So I don't know if they heard me or not, but a couple of years later, we've started to have Roon tested. Now, what this means is this will support Roon streaming via supported technology. So in this case, it's going to be AirPlay, and it'll also support Roon via USB and HDMI if you have that connection. Now, the other thing that this is not is it's not Roon ready, which means that it cannot act as a native Roon endpoint using Roon's RAT streaming protocol. You have Amazon Music and Tidal, that all ties into HEOS. I mentioned it's 3 zones, and you have Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 and a 3-year warranty. Just a quick sidebar with Odyssey. If you are an enthusiast who cares about the audio performance, I strongly recommend that you download and purchase the Odyssey app from the Apple App Store or from the Google Play Store. It's going to give you some additional control and options. Gene Della Sala and I did a separate video on how to best calibrate Odyssey in your environment, so I would recommend you do that. The other thing that the 8500 will support is Odyssey's brand new Multi-QX, which is a computer-based Odyssey calibration tool. So I'll be doing a separate review on that at some point in the future. As is typical, what you'll get here is some protective tape, and the screen is also guarded. And what Denon does, I should say, in contrast to Marantz, is you get some additional controls here. So you get a lot of the basic controls that are on the remote that you can do manually. So you can choose to turn zones on and off. You can get a status display. You have a remote here, a little keypad so that you can navigate the menus, info setup. You have a front HDMI and a 5-volt USB. You also have a headphone input, a 1/8. And this is where you'll plug in your Odyssey mic, and then you have the ability to dim the display and also to do some quick select of inputs here. There's a protective coating on the display, as you'll see there. So I'll take that off before I set it up. The left knob is what you can turn to select inputs on the AVR, and the master volume control is on the right. Now, what you'll notice is there is no A on an AVR-X8500HA. Instead, what is going to make the difference is when you look at the unit from... All right, so I'm getting ready to rack the Denon, and I want to show you something that I think is pretty important if you have this unit, considering it, or you have the original 8500. What I've got next to this guy is this beast of an amplifier, the Monoprice Monolith 7. This is a 200 watt per channel amplifier. It weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of about, I don't know, 92, 95 pounds or something like that. Good old school Class AB. I reviewed this unit several years ago. Gene put it on the bench, and it's just a beast. And I want you to look at the size of the Denon next to the Monoprice. It's actually slightly larger. So you're going to need to give yourself ample clearance here when you want to put this guy in a rack or a cabinet or what have you. So I have a suggestion, which you may or may not find practical, is because the connections in the back can get kind of unwieldy. I like to use angled locking bananas. I get these from Parts Express. You can get others from WPT that might be a little bit better quality and more expensive, but I find something like this to be a pretty good solution to trying to reduce some of the cable clutter and footprint that you're going to find on the back. So just something to be attentive to as you set it up. I now have the 8500HA racked in my Salamander rack. So let's take a look at the back panel here. All the way on the right side, you'll see that it says AVR-8500H. Notice the A next to the power supply. That'll be the first indicator that you have an A, and the second indicator, which I'll talk about in a second, is the fact that you have the 8K up here for the outputs and the input. So starting on the left side, we have the Bluetooth antenna. Then you have a USB power supply, which is super handy because so many devices now are being powered with USB. So you'll have a 5-volt 1.5 amp right there. This is not for you to plug in USB media devices. That would be, let's say, USB audio storage and things of that nature. That's not what this is. Use the front panel for that. Ethernet network, that's always the recommended way to connect any audio gear. And then you have here 6 4K HDMI ins that are HDCP 2.3 compliant. So as I mentioned before, the entire unit has the latest for copy protection. And then you have one HDMI 8K input, which is aux2 HDMI number 7. You have 3 HDMI outputs. Zone 2 is 4K, and then you have mirrored monitor 1 and monitor 2, which are 8K outputs. Monitor 1 has ARC and eARC, so that really is a great feature because it future-proofs you with everything that's happening today, especially with now the advent of the ATSC 3.0 standard, and hopefully we'll be getting more and more immersive audio happening everywhere. On the extreme right side, you have the Wi-Fi, the second antenna to plug in there. Your FM is right here, so FM and AM antenna. And then you have this kind of strange thing. It's a Denon Link HD, and this is a proprietary input or linking system that Denon has with some of its other media devices. So what this does, it basically synchronizes the clocks, reduces jitter, and all that great stuff, but it is something that's proprietary to Denon. And then right underneath, you have a ground because you do have a phono preamp built into this. So yeah, you can spin vinyl right off your 8500H, so the signal ground is right there. You have more analog inputs than you could hope for here. So you have everything, and all of these inputs are assignable. So you can plug something into cable and satellite into input 1. You can assign it to a totally different input to complement either an HDI source, or if you are doing something that is different, you can just assign them out. We then have all the analog pre-outs here for every single channel, including independent subwoofer out, subwoofer 1, subwoofer 2. What's really great about this guy here is you have the ability, as I mentioned in the unboxing, to really use the 8500 just as a preamp. So it'll disconnect the amplifier section, won't turn it off, but it'll disconnect it so you can use your amplification of choice. And then right in here you have 7.1 channel input on the analog side. So if you have any legacy SACD players or anything that might not have an HDMI out, you are future-proofed here again with the Denon. You have legacy RCA video inputs and component video, and of course everything is assignable as well as a component output. So guys, this thing will do it all. It'll take all your legacy gear, all the most modern gear, and it's really a one-stop shop. I mentioned that you have the ability to spin up your vinyl. There's your photo input, and this is important that you have independent triggers. What I like to do in some of my gear, especially if I'm using external amplification or even different sources, is you can program each of these triggers independently. So if you're playing 2-channel, for example, you happen to have an amplifier connected, you could have a 2-channel source that only turns on your 2-channel external amp. Or in this particular case, hey, I'm triggering my my Oppo Blu-ray player, so I only want that to turn on when I have the Blu-ray input selected. So all this is great from a custom installation point of view. You can link external remote control, so you can link different rooms. RS-232 again for remote control and automation systems. And you have 2 SPDIF and 2 Toslink optical assignable inputs. Again, everything here is assignable. You have ample amplification. You can drive 13 total channels with the built-in amplification. And what I do want to note is I found these binding posts to be extremely sturdy, very high quality. And what will happen here is if you are doing both an Oro 3D and a Dolby Atmos and DTSX, what will happen is these become assignable. So the heights and the front wides all become assignable, so you could either use the wides or top height speakers. So that's a brief overview. It's a great AVR that we have here, and it's something that can serve as a command center for your entire media and entertainment. Before we close things out, don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support, and you get direct access to us to ask questions or suggest video topics. And so guys, there you have it.
We just went through the unboxing of this fabulous flagship AVR from Denon, the AVR-X8500HA. I'm excited, it looks great in my rack, and be sure to join me next time where I'll be walking you through a basic setup and configuration of this flagship AVR. So until next time, keep listening and look forward to your comments below.